right. Welcome to the May 24th Neshoba Regional School Committee meeting. Calling the meeting to order at 6:01. I'm going to shuffle things around on the agenda tonight, guys. And I'm going to give you the heads up about it first, and then we'll get into our order. But I know we have some guests, so I'm not going to mess up with that piece of it. I'm going to move the superintendent's report up under the student representative report, as long as everybody's okay with that. And the reason for that is, that's where the good stuff is. That's where the positive news is about what's going on in the schools and some of the more interesting things are. And I feel that when we get to that in our agendas, we're rushing through it really quick, and Brooke is trying to say as much as she can in a short period of time, and that's the kind of stuff we really need to hear. So I'm going to move it up so that we can hear that. Okay. So the first order on the agenda is our citizens' comments. And I have one citizen's comment. Okay. Okay, so I need to ask you both which topic on the agenda your comment is relative to, and let me tell you why we do that. And I'll explain citizens' comments and blah, 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 blah when we get there. The school committee can't deliberate on anything unless it's posted. So in order for us to actually have a discussion, the topic has to be on the agenda. So if the topic's not on the agenda and you have a comment, it really doesn't flow into the discussion of the business meeting. So given that, I just want you to keep that in the back of your head. And so what is the topic of?
The kindergarten class sizes and the equality amongst the district.
Okay, so that is not an agenda topic.
Okay.
So typically, I'm going to get myself into trouble. I would say, I'm sorry we can't take it, but I will take a comment, one comment. But the thing is, we can't respond to it.
I understand.
But I want you to understand why. It's because we really have to adhere to this. And so let me also give you, because anytime we do citizens' comments, I always read the policies just so you're comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it, and the public is comfortable with it. 3 minutes, okay? I know. And we have a lovely ballerina here tonight. And then, nothing negative about anyone that works in the district, no one in the administration, school committee. And we can't have this conversation, so I'll let you make your statements, but then we're going to have to move on.
Yeah.
So I would suggest, though, in the future, if you have an issue that is something the school committee could deliberate on, and that topic isn't because that belongs in the administrative function, we approve the budget, and the superintendent comes to us and says, here's all the work that we've done across the district, this is what we need. And so we give the money, but we don't say, you go in and you move this one there and this here and put 50 grand there and 60 grand there. So I just want you to understand, it's not us being rigid, we really are held in open meeting law to certain structures. So I just want to make sure you know. Okay.
Okay. So, hello, I'm Christina Lazaro, 54 Vaughn Hill Road in Bolton. I'm a parent to a current first grader at Florence Sawyer and an incoming kindergartner at Florence Sawyer. I'm concerned about the class sizes, specifically at Florence Sawyer, but also the equity amongst the district. According to the 2018 budget that's posted online, Florence Sawyer has 70 students registered with 3 class sections averaging 23 students per class. Mary Romson has 55 students with 3 sections averaging 18 per class. And the center school has 63 students with 4 teachers, according to the kindergarten parent information meeting that was held on Monday, May 22nd, averaging 16 students per class. I know these numbers can change at any given time, and Ms. Clenchy said they are closely monitoring class sizes across the district at all grade levels. I'm concerned there's an inequality within the district among the kindergarten classes, and I'm wondering what steps are being taken for the children at Florence Sawyer School to ensure they have the same educational experiences as those at Center School with 16 children per class. I believe that all students within the Neshoba Regional School District deserve an equal opportunity. Students in a class with 18 to 20 versus 23 to 24 are likely to be more successful. As noted in many different research studies, smaller class sizes show lasting gains both academically and socially, have fewer discipline problems, and a better classroom climate. In conclusion, we pay a lot of money in taxes to live in such a great town. We also have to pay kindergarten tuition. Therefore, our children should be given equal opportunities in a smaller classroom setting. Thank you.
Thank you for the appropriateness of your comments, too. I appreciate the way you approached the committee. I'm not going to say anything, but I'm going to offer up.
Yeah, I'd like to, please. Thank you. So thank you. First of all, I think we've exchanged a couple of emails back and forth. So I appreciate that, and I think I even said thank you for your outreach on this. Just to let the school committee know, kind of a bit of an update. And she's absolutely right. Is it Christina?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Christina's absolutely right. I did respond to the fact that we do monitor this very, very closely. And if you'll recall, we also were in the same position last year. And truthfully, and I think I may have even said this in my email to her, this is something all superintendents and principals watch, not just across the Commonwealth, but across the country, because you're always watching for the numbers to ebb and flow. I mean, for example, this is good house buying season right now. And so you're going to, we've got a number of kids who are registered across the districts. I'm going to speak to Florence Sawyer in a minute, but across the district with potential move-ins, but that may or may not happen, right? So that's something that you always have to think about, that piece. But the may move in means that they could be there and those numbers will go up. We've also had some situations where we've had, and Florence Sawyer is one of them, where we've just had a withdrawal from that kindergarten class, because people are moving out. And it has nothing to do with the season, it's just what's happened. We are monitoring, and I think you'll see Principal Bates say this tomorrow night. I mean, we monitor this more than weekly. Like, he'll probably say weekly, but quite frankly, it's about every other day or every third day. We just touch base, all of us, the three elementary principals across the district and myself, just watching the numbers. And your numbers are close to dead on, to be honest with you, tonight. So I appreciate that. I think sometimes we've got to be cautious too between numbers of registered versus the census numbers, because sometimes those numbers are a little skewed for us. And so you always kind of have to watch that. So it's better if you're looking at true registered numbers. So I'm very respectful of that. So that's one piece of it. So know that we're monitoring just like we did last year, because we even and sometimes it's not just K either. I want to point that out. I think it was last year's grade 3 class, I think here, that we were monitoring like right to that first week of August, saying, do we do something differently? Now I want to speak about one of the gifts that the school committee gave us this year was a change in that particular policy, because what that did was allowed us to move an additional teacher into that grade 4 level for next year, which if we were just abiding by numbers, that would not have happened. But because they gave us that gift, we were able to move another teacher into that classroom. And it had nothing to do with numbers, it had everything to do with the dynamics in that classroom, the needs, and what we felt was just right for kids. So if you take a look, go back to the budget that you had alluded to earlier, you'll see that in there, right? So we'll do the same thing now with K. Now, as for discrepancy across the district, okay, nothing is in stone. And so I want to be very, very clear on that. And I think that you will see Principal Mulcairn send a note out to that effect to make sure that everybody understands nothing is in stone for class sizes or numbers of teachers at that K level at this moment in time, because we're going to continue to monitor. So for example, let's say Lancaster just got a huge influx. We would really have to do some redistributing across the district to make sure that that need was met in Lancaster. Do you know what I mean? If it was at the K level. Well, at any level, to be honest with you, but I know right now you're speaking about K. So we're watching that, and we'll monitor, and we'll do whatever we feel is the right thing to do. Sometimes I'll use that expression of tipping point, and very often, what's the tipping point for that number? But quite frankly, I think what we did with the grade 4 level this year at Florence Sawyer kind of goes directly against with the tipping point, because there was no tipping point in terms of numbers. The tipping point was something else. Do you know what I mean? So I guess the message I just send is, and to the school committee as well as is to the parents, know that we're monitoring this beyond regular because we're very conscientious. We want to do the right thing for the kids. And we all know how important early elementary education is. It's foundational. It is. I mean, you can't build a strong house without good pony walls and a strong foundation. No different in education, right? You need that strong foundation. So we're very aware of that. So I just wanted to kind of add that if that's okay.
So we're good. Thank you so much. I think the school, I can speak on behalf of the school committee, we do trust you to do right by the students. If something happens where you need something from us, you will let us know.
Yeah.
But I would ask that the community, I think the vast majority of the community does trust the administration to do the work. So you'll let us know if you
Yeah.
need something. Okay, great.
Can I ask
Thank
one
you.
question about,
We can't deliberate at all. Not going to go there, especially now. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming. Nice to see you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to jump to our student representative report. Nick Mellis this is his last
meeting.
So we'll let you do the report. Why don't you introduce your new friend?
This is Isabel Stringfellow. I said it right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she is the new student rep. And
she's our new friend.
Should I
Yeah.
explain? I'm a junior, so I'll be a senior next year at Neshoba. I'm an EMT. I play field hockey there. I'm pretty involved in the school community. Definitely go to Student Advisory Council, which is how Nick and I met with the principal, and kind of through those channels. Student government. I'm the secretary of the class of 2018, so have a lot of different parts of the school that I'm involved in, and I'm really interested in getting to know all of you and definitely talking about our wonderful school. Love my
Oh,
show.
terrific. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Nick, go ahead.
The spring sports are going well. The regular season for the high school ends this weekend and playoffs begin next week. Neshoba hosted the Division I Central Sectional Unified Track Meet yesterday. It was a great event, and our Neshoba team placed second overall. The varsity boys and girls track teams hosted the Mid-Watch B-League Championship last week at Neshoba. Our teams did well and have students moving on to compete in this weekend's Central West meet. The tennis teams are finishing up their season with matches every day this week. The girls have qualified for the postseason, and boys are chasing 2 more wins to get into the tournament. The baseball teams have improved to 11-6, and the softball team is now 13-4. Both teams have qualified for playoffs. The softball teams have played Holy Name last Friday night at Worcester State in Autism Awareness Game. Neshoba and Holy Name combined to raise over $2,000 for autism changes. The boys lacrosse team is 9-8 and qualifies for playoffs for the first time in 4 years. The girls lacrosse team is 8-9. If they win tonight versus Leominster, they will make playoffs. The middle school teams will be playing into June, and all 3 school track teams will come to Neshoba on June 9th for the annual NRSD track meet. Concert choir will be attending the Great East Music Festival at Agawam Junior High School this Friday, May 26th. The students have chosen 3 of their best songs from their repertoire this year to present festival adjunctures. There will be a 20-minute clinic following the performance led by one of our festival adjunctors. Additionally, Saturday, June 3rd, concert choir as well as select choirs from Florence Sawyer will be performing at Relay for Life. Performances will be at 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Finally, on May 28th, the concert band will be performing for Lancaster and Stowe Memorial Day parades. They are excited to participate in honoring the memories of the local men and women who gave their lives to serve this community. On Friday, June 9th, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., the high school will be hosting In Control Crash Prevention, a driver education program in the student parking lot. The program, which has been received funding through the Office of Public and Safety and Secretary, will be coming to Neshoba to teach students about safe driving skills. Students who elect to participate students who elect to participate will get in an in-control vehicle operated by a professional driver and do 3 runs down a closed course. The course is set up to demonstrate the impact of speed and emergency lane changes and braking, as well as emphasizing the importance of seatbelt use. In order to enroll in this 15-minute program, the only requirement is that this parent or guardian signs a waiver and a survey is filled out by the student before and after the experience. Students may sign up in the main office to learn more about In Control. See driveincontrol.org. On Monday, June 5th, students from Hale will be leaving for their annual Washington, D.C. trip. We wish all of you a very fun and safe trip. Seniors have their last day Friday, May 26th. Seniors will have breakfast in the morning provided through donations from parents, and after breakfast, seniors will be going outside for field day until dismissal for all students at 11:30 a.m.
Any questions for Nick?
Nice job.
Nick, thank you so much for the year. And we have a small parting gift, but we will miss you. Thank you. And I'm especially, so I'll see you at graduation,
I'll
right?
see you too.
Okay, thank you.
Is it a laptop?
Thank you,
Okay, and Isabel, welcome, once again. All right, I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent for her superintendent's report.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to ask Mr. DiDomenico to come to the table, please. Thank you. So I would like to officially welcome this evening Paul DiDomenico, who is our new principal at Neshoba Regional High School. I'm just going to read a little bit about him and just update the school committee on where we're at. We're welcoming Paul DiDomenico to Neshoba from Algonquin Regional High School in Northborough, where he's been assistant principal for 12 years. Before Algonquin, he was the principal at St. Bernadette's, a pre-K to 8 school in Northborough, and at St. Mary's Junior Senior High School in Worcester. Prior to going into administration, Paul taught English at Malden Catholic High School, and he taught high school students in a Department of Youth Services secure detention center. He also taught literature and writing part-time through the Worcester Superior Court to recently released former inmates. Paul graduated from the University of Massachusetts in Amherst with a bachelor's degree in English. He has 2 master's degrees in education, the first in teaching English from the University of Massachusetts in Boston, and the second as an administrative master's in school and organizational leadership from Endicott College. And Paul, you and your family live in Worcester, I believe, is that correct? Thank you.
Welcome.
So I'm going to open it up to see if anybody has questions, but I just want to put forward, Paul, it's just a pleasure to invite you here and to welcome you to our family. And as you know, you and I have spoken, and I spoke about the fact that the faculty, when they did the forum with you, felt very strongly that you were the front runner, that you were the person that they wanted to have in there. And so they're thrilled that you're coming on board too. So thank you very much for tackling this. I said to you earlier today how much I know I personally am looking forward to working with you. So I think it'll be a great match for Neshoba, both the high school and for the district. So I would turn it over to the school committee to see if you have any questions of Principal DiDomenico.
Any questions?
Are you ready? And Dr. Graham has been very gracious in making himself available. So once graduation is behind us at Neshoba and Algonquin, he and I will be getting together to meet with folks, and hopefully I'll have a chance to say hi to Isabel at the school and meet a few other members of the class of 2018, as well as some of the department chairs, and I'm really excited, really looking forward to it.
And your start date is July 1?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Yeah.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much. Oh, Nick, you have a question?
What do you think is the first thing that you're going to do?
Well, Nick, I think one of the things I'm going to do is not assume that I know the first thing I'm going to do. So I want to talk to Dr. Graham, see what the direction that the school is headed in. But I know one of the things I will do over the summer is reach out to some folks to sit down with them to talk to them about Neshoba, graduating seniors, as well as some parents and some staff, just to get their impressions of what the school is. I've heard wonderful things about it. From former students, former teachers, people I know who know people at the high school. So I'm very excited. And I had a very warm welcome from Superintendent Clenchey and the rest of the administrative team, so.
That's terrific.
Thrilled
I'm
to be
so
a part
glad. I'm so glad to hear that. Well, thank you. And I understand that you were taken out for dinner earlier. Was it?
I was, yes.
Yes, that seems to be
I
the
did
ritual
already.
now. Mrs. Stoika and Mrs. Maroney have been taking out our new principals for dinner before they come in. So we're glad that you were well taken care of this evening. So again, welcome and thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Take care, folks.
All right, terrific.
So-
And now we have.
Report, or do you want
Oh, you have? I'm sorry.
I do, but do you?
I just
I'm
got so
wondering if it's
excited. No, do your
Do
your
the report.
superintendent.
Okay, so a quick follow-up to Principal DiDomenico. Just to the school committee, just so that you know, we have begun the onboarding process for both Principal DiDomenico and Principal Grady. Principal Grady was also in the district for much of this afternoon, our new principal at Hale. In fact, he picked up his laptop today and such, and so we're getting both gentlemen onboarded ASAP and acclimated. So special thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules right now to start to move in here. A couple things from me. First of all, the first item, school committee orientation for our new members. A special thank you very much for joining us the other day, and a special thanks to Mrs. Stoika and Chairman Ramosko. A group of us sat down the other day, and we didn't scare them off because they're back
came
here
back.
tonight. So we're really glad to have you. So thank you ever so much for that. Wellness Expo. We had a recent Wellness Expo at Neshoba Regional High School. How fun was that, right? That was just, I learned more about ticks than I probably ever want to know. But you know what? It's problematic for us, right? And I thought, wow, how timely is this? It was fabulous, and they had this wonderful little thing and showed exactly how to take it out, and wow, it was great. So the Wellness Expo I thought was just terrific the other day. Next on the district improvement plan, we actually have a nice brochure right now that has been a prototype that we've developed. We continue to work away at the substance behind the key bullets, but we've broken it down into 4 key salient points and now are doing the work underneath that. But the brochure itself looks absolutely fabulous. And Neshoba High School also hosted a reality fair. Another thing, if you've never been to one of those, that was just a lot of fun. Actually, you were there too, I believe, Chairman Roscoe. And the students go around, they've got a wonderful sheet that they fill in. And I noticed that I personally went immediately to the spa section. They have a wonderful table of spa and such. But I saw other people in the banking and the savings area. But how fun was that? It was just fabulous. So a special thanks to everyone who attended and who set up there. Next item, budget, current, proposed, ongoing efforts. No different than I was talking tonight about the kindergarten, pre-K, and all that kind of thing. We're still continuing to work away at that. I'm not talking about those items specifically, but it gives you an example of the work that we're doing. And we're also looking at wrapping up the year end right now, doing projections on that, knowing exactly where we're going to be at. So at our June meeting, then we'll talk through some very specifics for transfers and where we'd like to go with any projected funds that may or may not be remaining on that. So Pat's office and the business office continue to work very, very closely with Human Resources and SPED as well as my office. So it's really a team effort around this table. The next item I've got here, some are facilities projects. Our facilities department right now is outlining all of the different projects, making a chart, just as the same approach we took last year, looking at the key things that need to be accomplished this summer, so they're working hard on that. The last item I have, I've just put it as looking forward. We've begun a lot of work for our first day back, and yes, that's exactly where we are. We're looking at the first day back, all of our needs, what this is going to look like, our professional development for next year. It's all on the table right now, and so I've called it looking forward because that's really what we're doing. So I would just want you to know that we are doing a lot of work. We've got a lot of emerging themes like the social emotional component and all that kind of thing. So you'll see that come to the forefront. So those are the key things that we've been working on the last 2 weeks. So I don't know if you have any questions on that.
Any questions for the superintendent? No? Well, let's bring the Hale kids in.
Let's bring the Hale kids in. Can't wait to see them.
So I'm going to let you tee it up.
And I think Principal Perkins is here as well. Come on in. Welcome.
These are big kids.
Now is Principal Perkins out there? There he is. I'm going to let Principal Perkins He's the last one in the room. I'm going to get you to tee this up.
Well, I'm going to turn this right over to Matt Irvin.
Yeah.
I will get out of your way, Chairman.
Okay, we just need
Rothbard, I
a
will.
small corner right here.
Absolutely. Move all my stuff. I'm good with that.
Wow. I didn't even see that. Jim, brother?
Yeah.
Okay. Just asking.
Hi, so again, I'm Matt Irvin, and these are my colleagues: Owen McBride, Alec Caracca, Drew Everton, Andrew Sears, Henry Garrick, and Ethan Henry.
Hi,
So,
Ethan.
We're the FTC, or part of the Hale FTC robotics team, so thank you for having us. We're delighted to be here. So we have two Hale teams this year. One of them was the first LEGO League, and it uses the LEGO Mindstorm system, which you can see up on the screen. And it was all sixth graders, and we had two advisors, Mr. Bleeker and Mr. Melbourne. Our team, the Hale FTC team, was 7th and 8th graders this year, and it uses aluminum parts, and the competition requires much more complex robots, and we have an example here and one on the screen. And the competition is a lot more intense, and it revolves around one specific challenge. And our one advisor was my mother, Irvin. So this is a picture of our Hale FTC team at the state championship, and about half of the people on our team, mostly the 8th graders, they were on the team last year, which was the original team, and it consists of about 15 members. So the first organization, which is the organization that runs the first LEGO League and the first robotics competition and the first tech challenge that we're participating in, releases its challenge videos every September. And there's a different challenge each year, and to talk about our challenge this year is on the prep.
So as you might have already noticed, the challenge is called Velocity Vortex for this year. So this is a picture of the playing field. These where the blue alliance members would stand, so the red alliance, basically the alliances are like teams. So how it works is you have 2 minutes and 30 seconds to score as many points as possible. This can be done by putting these balls up into these vortexes by like a shooter mechanism or a catapult. You can push them through here. There's a little opening at the top of these ramps. You can also push these beacons here. These change colors, and you can make them your team's color by pushing buttons. You can also, so we have 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The first 30 seconds are called the autonomous period. This is where you cannot control your robot at all. It's all pre-programmed, pre-designed, like sensors and stuff. And so then for the next 2 minutes, this is driver controlled, where you get to use controllers and move around the robot. There's 2 drivers and a coach. 2 drivers drive, the coach kind of tells them what to do. And finally, the last 30 seconds of the driver control is called end game. Here, there's more ways to score points, such as you can pick up these yoga balls. They're called cat balls. If you just pick one up off the ground, you get amount of points. If you lift it above 30 inches, you get more points. And if you actually manage to cap it, which is put it in this vortex, you receive a lot of points.
All right, and just for reference, we actually brought one of the beacons. So let me just put this in real quick. The beacon has to be pushed by the robot, and as you can see here, the colors are randomized at the beginning of the match. So during the autonomous period, which is when the robot is pre-programmed, it has to be able to tell which side is which color and which team it's on. So that way it can push, if it's on the red team, you can push the red beacon, or the red color, and then they get the points for that. And as you can see, these buttons are very small, which makes it very difficult to push them. So our first build season was very good. It was from September to early December. So the first thing that we did, and I think this was one of the most important things that we did, is we split the team into different subgroups, each with their different function. So we did that in order to make a functioning robot with only like a couple main functions, as we knew that we weren't going to get all the functions we wanted into our first robot. So what we planned to do was make a sweeper, which sweeps or pushes the particles through the corner vortexes or the corner ramps, and it also pushed beacons. And it did pretty well. It did as we expected it to do, but it wasn't spectacular. And we knew that we'd have to make more improvements to the second robot. So our second build period and our second robot was from December to mid-January. And as you can see, we had a completely new robot from the last picture, which you can see up in the corner. It's completely different. And we made multiple changes. We created a cube-like frame, as you can see, and we canted the wheels 45 degrees it's also called a holonomic drive. And we made a shooter, we made a lift, which is in the center here, and we also made a completely new sweeper and these buttons, or these things to push the buttons on the beacon. We also had more accurate movement through the usage of sensors, which some of you can see are right here and right here. There's more around the robot. And this allowed us to have a much better autonomous, much more accurate movement. We used what's called encoders on the wheels, which is essentially a disc that a sensor reads with all the lines in the disc, so you can tell how far the wheel is turning and how much you need to turn it. And so our autonomous program was what really gave us an edge on the playing field during the second qualifier. So the results for the second qualifier were great. After meeting every day for 5 weeks before the qualifier, it really paid off, and the new lift and all the other functions pulled through along with the autonomous, and we were able to score. We were able to be in the first place for the 2 alliances during the last final match. And if someone could click, this is during the state championships. It's a video of our autonomous. So we're on the blue team right now. So we shoot a ball into the center vortex, and the great thing about the holonomic drive is that you can move in lateral movement, you can rotate in place, and as you can see, it's really great because you can turn and move in a straight line to the other beacon, which is something that was really advantageous because it saved a lot of time. Another thing that's, in my opinion, really awesome is that we were up against mainly high school teams, and they had essentially the same autonomous as us with a couple improvements. So I thought kudos to our programmer who's not able to come today. And this is a video clip of our driver control period, which is when me and the driver, who was Owen, we were driving and controlling the robot to do its different functions. So it's the same match, so we're starting off from where we were. So here you can see we're trying to sweep up balls in the sweeper, which I'm going to turn so everyone can see it. This is a sweeper. It sweeps up balls up into the robot where it can shoot it on the other side. And I think we shoot it right here. And we get one. So another huge thing that you have to do in this competition is you have to work with your alliance so that you know what they're going to do well and you're not going to do the same thing as them, so that way you can divide and conquer the different things that you need to do to get points. So here, I believe we're picking up balls and shooting them into the center vortex because our alliance robot, I think their shooter either broke down or wasn't working very well that day, so they were going around keeping control of the beacons. Can you skip to the end game? So the last 30 seconds, as Owen covered, is called endgame, and that is when you can, if you want to just pause it, so here you can see we're lifting up the ball, and if you can unpause the video, we're going to come up and lift it onto the center vortex. And I believe they made the call they gave the points to us, so I think we were the first people in the whole competition to do that. Alright, just a concluding remark. It's been a very challenging build season, but it's also been a great build season. We've learned to appreciate teamwork in that by using the team, by splitting them off, you can get a lot more things done in a lot less time. And that saves you a lot of time you can be doing troubleshooting the robot, programming the robot, and just getting ready for the competition. Another thing that we learned is to appreciate the wonderful mentors that we had, including our advisor. We had 3 other mentors, and they were really helpful in making either custom machine parts or helping the programmer do his thing. And we also learned that gracious professionalism was a great thing, which Al can talk about.
So, like, the entire first organization revolves around, like, the idea of gracious professionalism, which is basically, like, respecting others in your community. So, like, if you went to, like, a first competition, there wouldn't be, like, any teams there that were, like, making fun of other teams for, like, not doing as well or performing as successfully as other teams. Like, everyone, they try to help out each other as best as possible, and they're just, like, really kind people. And, like, gracious professionalism combines knowledge, competition, and empathy, like, all into one. And, like, people, like, if you go to a competition, people will be competitive, but there's no, like, chest bumping and, like, really, like, going, like, woo, 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 and, like, cheering. But and there's no, like, making people feel like losers either, but, like, they're all just very kind and friendly people to each other.
Yeah, and that's another thing, is that by having everybody act in a gracious professionalism-like way, it's preparing you for the real world, in that if you treat someone with respect, everyone else is going to give it to you. And that's one of the huge things that they really just kind of, I won't say beat into you, but it's one of the things that they really suggest. And if you show it to everyone, it will really pay off. People will help you and critique you. Like, some of the more experienced teams, they congratulated us, but at the same time, they're like, this is what you can do better. But they weren't they weren't critics. They were just people helping out the community. So thank you for having us here. We really enjoyed it.
Wonderful.
If there's any questions, we can take questions. Do you have like a minute or two?
How many are 7th graders? I mean, how many are in the 7th grade here?
7th grade here.
6.
Do we have a team coming in for next year?
Yeah, I think we have a few people from the 6th grade that will move up.
Yeah. I know there has been interest in the 6th graders that will be moving up into the team.
As for 7th graders, the one here are Drew, Andrew, and Ethan, and then I think
they've
few
become
more
quite
on our
experienced and have been a huge help to the team.
I have a two-part question. So, do any of you right now actually have any thoughts of pursuing this as a profession or something to that field, number one? And then number two, what is it that you would like to see that you know, this is great what the school was able to do, but are there any aspects that you guys weren't able to do that you'd really love to be able to see as an opportunity down the line?
In terms of the first part, I mean, I, for one, enjoy mechanical engineering, and I'm going into physics with engineering at Mr. Fortiani's class next year. So that's, yeah, thumbs up.
Tough one, feller.
Yeah, so that's something that I guess I'm seeking as a profession, is for possibly mechanical engineering. And doing this is a great experience for anyone who wants to pursue any kind of engineering, really, because it encompasses the programming, the software aspect, the hardware aspect, and just it simulates the environment that you're going to have, in my opinion. So, and anyone else?
Is there any aspect of what you did that that you'd like to see maybe done differently, or there's something in the competitions that maybe other schools were able to do that you guys were like, oh, that would be really cool if we could have done that or could do that?
I don't really think it was down to the competition-wise. One thing that I noted but didn't really complain about, or I mean, I'm not complaining about it now, but we had to use one of the other kids' or members' machine shops. His dad works as a machinist, so we used that for some of the custom parts that we built. I mean, if I know the equipment is very expensive, so I'm not asking for any of you to try and supply the machine equipment that you would possibly need. I think we did with what we had. Other teams had more resources than us, but that was because they weren't attached to a school. And I'm not saying being attached to a school is bad, but because they had that freedom, they were able to, like, they had a different home base elsewhere. But I think being attached to a school is good, because then you don't have to go out. You're spending more time on the robot instead of seeking out sponsors. Mm-hmm. So it's a good and a bad, but it's, in my opinion, it's mostly good.
Great, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna let the superintendent.
Sure, thank you. I just want to say I'm so impressed. Oh my goodness, and this is just fabulous. I attended one of the high school competitions in Worcester.
Yeah, those are intense.
Oh my, it's so intense. That's a great word, so intense. But, you know, I'm not sure, I think when you were talking about the gracious professionalism and such, you know, everybody was there. It was like this huge auditorium that was just a team. It's just so cool. And to watch all of you do this and your level of professionalism tonight, oh my gosh, so proud of you. So, so proud of you. Thank you so much. Thank you to the parents. Thank you for supporting and guiding and mentoring and leading.
And driving.
and
driving.
too, yes. So we thank you so much, and Principal Perkins, we thank you too. Just wonderful. To all of you, we thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
So amazing. Oh my goodness.
Heavy?
Yeah, it is pretty heavy.
All right. Wow.
Where do you go after something like that, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
New business?
I guess so.
That's mine.
Okay, that's fine.
Did you want it?
No, I don't want it. It's all good. All right, we're gonna move into the Neshoba Regional High School store line item classification.
Mrs. Maroney's here to have that discussion.
That is a tough act to follow. I have a request from the principal at the high school, Dr. Perry Graham, that we move some funds around. And basically, when I say move funds around, what I want to explain is that we have a school store, and it currently is funded in a revolving fund. So, you know, revenues from purchases by the kids, you know, in expenditures flow through this revolving fund. What Dr. Graham would like to do is move the funds into the student activities. And the reason being is the DECA program would like to use that. They currently staff the school store, and they'd like to use some of the resources from that school store to fund some of their activities when they travel and they participate in their competitions. I think it's a great opportunity, and he has talked to me about this many times, and I think it's probably a better use of the funds. In our middle schools, the school stores are in the student activities funds. So as far as being consistent across the district, I think it's a good thing. And as far as the DECA program, where they're staffing it, and it's a learning environment for them, a marketing tool, or you know, just a business environment. I think it's something that we should push forward, and we would like a vote from you to be able to move the funds from a revolving fund to the student activity funds today.
So does anybody have questions for Pat on this? Kathy and then Neil.
Does would Stavros have oversight?
Yes.
So he'd be like the manager?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And he is currently the advisor for the DECA program.
Right.
So it would make sense that it would just fall on.
So he would sign off.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And currently, the money that is generated from the school store, it goes into its own revolving account?
It's in its own revolving account right now, and basically, you know, when students or staff purchase anything, the funds stay within there, and whatever revenues they have, that's what they have to purchase stock for the following year. The purpose of moving this fund to the student activity is it would now become something for the DECA program to now use marketing plans and, you know, make use of a learning experience for these the DECA program.
So within student activities, the monies would be earmarked for DECA. It wouldn't be used for anything else.
Right, it would become part of the student activity fund.
And it would go to purchase additional.
Right, only student activities. They would be funds raised by students.
But they would still be using that to purchase the material.
Exactly. It would still have the same purpose, but it would be under the DECA program.
So Neil, you had a question?
Yeah, it's actually 3, but it's really quick.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I thought DECA was running this currently, the store.
Well, they are, they're staffing.
Okay, they're staffing it, and forgive me if Kathy asked this and I didn't hear the answer, but what is the fund currently being used for? Like, the revenues from that fund, is it generating, and where's that money going?
They just use the funds to purchase additional merchandise to be sold in the store.
So it's just been kind of sitting there, and
Right.
that's
What's the
really-
balance, Pat?
To tell you the truth, I don't know what it is, but I know in past years, it's only a couple of $1,000s.
Okay. Sorry, Neil, go ahead.
And then there's one comment and then another thing. So I'd like to see if it was set up as a student activities account, that it's set up as DECA store, student activities
Sure.
account, not store, because that just leads it to be able to be accessed, to your point, to other things. And then the other thing is, I think separately, when we get a chain of custody policy put in place, which we need to do with the MASBO recommendations and the CAP, that one would specifically, in addition to student activities, have to apply to like Starvos and you know, the whole management of that particular store. In addition, you know what I mean, just so we don't miss that one in the chain of custody protocol. That's really all I have.
All right, any other questions? No one? I have a question that's related. I'm going to push the envelope a little bit. The money that the senior class has raised belongs to the senior class. Make sure that Caitlin Vasington knows the money that you guys raised belongs to your senior class.
Okay.
Okay? I really want to make sure she knows that, because I think there might be some confusion. But
Caitlin
that,
Basington is the class president, and she's like a pro at what she does.
yep, she's awesome. But you make sure she knows that's your money. Okay, awesome. So I need a vote on establishing, well, you had the best recommendation. Establishing, thank you, the Neshoba Regional High School DECA store
Student activity fund.
student activities fund. Can someone move that motion?
Second.
You need to move it.
Move it. So
Move it in a second. Thank you.
Second.
Mark, and any conversation, question? All those in favor? Oops, Susan just walked in. It's unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, Pat. Thanks for bringing it forward.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Can you just said something about student activities fund? It was just really huge. I apologize.
Want me to say?
Can somebody have a discussion? Maybe that's even policy, that towards the end of the year, someone have a discussion with the class president or the student council to explain that that's their money. We've got so many classes which they didn't use that in the past, and that's just been absorbed.
Right.
And we've taken that over, which I so disagree with. So you guys have the right to hold that. You can use it for reunions later on. You can gift it to the school. There are so many different things, and if somebody explains that to them, I think that would be really doing them a good service.
Please.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Review of Section C of the District Policy Manual, and I'm going to turn it over to Susan.
Yes, okay, so what was posted in the meeting packet is the markups that we decided on at the last meeting, so hopefully everyone had a chance. But what I did was I just made some notes so I could tell you what Dorothy, the recommendations she made and why the changes were made. So I'm just going to go really quickly, policy by policy. So the CA policy, you had reviewed and approved in 2015. This one matched the mask policy, so no changes there. And let me know if there's, do you want me to just go through everything, or do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm hoping everyone read what was in the packet, but if
Does
you
anyone-
want highlight.
Should I just wait for questions? Or?
No, I think
Okay, I'll highlight.
go through and highlight what was changed if it's substantive.
Yep, okay. CB, not a substantive change. There are no mayors in the member town.
Well, informal mayors maybe.
CBD, and when I say you, in 2015, the superintendent's contract policy had been approved, but then MASC adopted another policy in 2016 in July. So it removed the section that we had about the re-election of a superintendent, and added a sentence, the last sentence of the policy, which states, in accordance with said contract or in the absence of specific contract language, by vote of the members, the committee may choose to negotiate a successor contract with an incumbent superintendent. So that was added in. That hadn't been part of our policy. On to CBI. Dorothy's suggestion was to eliminate the protocol that was embedded in the policy. So that's what all of those red lines are. So the CBI that we will have if this gets approved is much simpler, and it just just states that those basic tenets and those four there, what the purpose of the evaluation is, not what the process is. And then for CCB, we had matching policies with MASC, and it had just been adopted in 2015, so that was good. CDA is most likely going to be moved to the personnel section of the policy manual. That's where other districts have it, because it's for district and school administrators, not the superintendent. So when we get to G, there'll be more talk about that. So CE, we had matching policies. And then for the next few ones, the CH ones, it's just, you probably noticed, all anytime there was a reference to a regulation, it's been changed to a procedure. So that's pretty much the only changes with those. So that's CH, CHA, regulations have been changed to procedures, pretty simple. CHC, same thing. And then for CHCA, we decided to go with the policy that we had rather than the one that that Dorothy brought from MASC, because our first two sentences are unique to, this is the approval of handbooks policy, are unique to Neshoba, and it gives the principals the ability to develop school rules and protocols in conjunction with the school council, and then to disseminate them to educators, staff, students, and parents. And there's a comment that says it's essential that the contents of all handbooks conform to school committee policies. So that we felt it was important to keep in. And then also the last sentence of the first paragraph is the difference, where it says rules may be added, deleted, or edited at any time thereafter during the school year following the same process. So we felt it was important to be able to revise throughout the school year. The CHCA-E, we didn't have, and they're mandatory provisions. So that's a case where Dorothy helps us out by telling us what we must have that we don't.
We don't review the school's handbooks, by the way. So
there's.
And I read in here that we should be.
Yep.
So when are we going to do that?
Okay.
So maybe ask. Oh gosh. Yeah. And they're probably already all completed. But we need to get on that road. We probably should, if we could just have the principals send us their handbooks. And then we need to get on the rotation in the upcoming year, because this was something that came up before, and we really should have some involvement in it. I love that these are being done. I can't believe it. Go ahead.
And then just two or three more. So the CHD, the one that we had was just a direct quote from Mass General Law, so it's been replaced with a simple policy that just refers to law. And then CL, we didn't have the CL, the administrative reports, but she recommended its adoption, and I think it fits well into what we've been sort of talking about throughout the year about subcommittee requests for regular reports and superintendent reporting regularly. So this is just a policy that says it requires reports from the superintendent concerning conditions of efficiency and needs of the school. So it establishes policy on when that will get those, that will take steps to look at their effectiveness. And then the last paragraph the print is super tiny on this, sorry. Yep, so the administration will also review.
Okay.
Is what that last paragraph says. And then the CM, we had matching policies, so.
Great.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. C is going to be the simplest, I think. Just.
So does anybody have questions for Miss?
I just want to make a comment. This is a lot of work. I mean, I know that you folks have been in here in a lot of meetings doing this, and I'm just really impressed. I have to
too.
say,
Dorothy does
super.
most of it.
Does she?
Yes, she does. She does. It's really great how she all of the stuff that had been emailed out, they pull from our policy manual and highlight the differences, and then there's just the discussion about.
But don't undersell the work you're doing, because
Yeah.
you know what's changed and why and where to help inform us, which is exactly how it's supposed to work.
I would agree, and if I can just jump on that too, I think you did a great job tonight of just highlighting the salient points, and again, we read it all before we came in here tonight, so I think this went really, really smoothly, so thank you. Really respect for the work that was done on this.
So do you, anyone have, Neil, you have questions? I'm sorry.
I do. It's on the handbook thing, because I was involved in that last year, because that was just recently, right? So it's kind of, so one question that I have, and just historical context, part of the reason that went to change was because of that chemical health issue, and which we still need a chemical health policy, but it had to do with the handbook not jiving with the disciplinary actions that had been meted out for some certain incidences that had occurred. So that's how that initially got changed. But my question is,
when you say change, you mean the approval of handbooks one?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and part of the thing was, we were really big about, well, you need to bring it to the school committee, because this is one thing, if you had to approve, it may have been caught, because you'd have people that would have actually been deliberating about it, right? But the query I guess I have is, with changes that can be made at any point in time, rules may be added, deleted, or edited at any time thereafter during the school year or the following same process. So I'm on my twofolds tonight. So the twofold question is, how do you update that so that the student body knows that there's been any rules or changes done throughout the year, rather than getting surprised by a new rule that's been put in place that they're in violation of, that they didn't know about, is number one. And if we have to approve all handbooks and there's changes, then it seems that we would then have to reapprove everything through the year if that change was made.
Yes. All right, well, I'll bounce it right back to you, because this week we kept our existing policies. So the policy that was, so this policy was a policy that the subcommittee had already decided.
The rules, was the rules thing in there?
Yep.
Maybe added or deleted or changed?
Yeah.
So it's like one of those great things when you set something down and you come back to
right.
it a while later and you have a completely different perspective.
I mean, I hate to.
I
we
can say who's the
definitely talk
knucklehead
about
that actually put that together at
no,
that point in time, right?
So,
So
okay.
what do you want? So what do
He
you
wants,
want?
and maybe.
Does that make sense?
Well, let me.
Well, explain it to
try.
the rest of us.
I think what you're saying is, if there is an instance where we have to make a change and approve a change during the school year,
Right.
how does that get disseminated?
What's the
to
process?
Right, the students all have the
They've got their
handbooks,
published
right?
handbooks,
Here you
yeah.
go. How do they know that there's a new rule that they're not violating, right? So there needs to be a way or a process or something
Right.
about disseminating that to the student body. But if we're supposed to be approving, which we haven't, but we're supposed to be approving handbooks, and there are changes made to the handbook, it seems that we would then need to reapprove any of the changes that have been made through the year.
We'd need to be informed and then, right.
Right. My first reaction, though, is, I mean, when I think to elementary and middle school, my own experience, and maybe Kathy, you can speak to this too, there's generally not a lot of changes at all that are made. The only possible changes that will come would be at that high school level, and it's generally only if new legislation happens or something like that. Otherwise, as a rule, you don't make changes during the middle of the year unless like something comes in through legislation. So the change would come more at the summer type thing. Sorry.
Things would be posted electronically, I'm assuming too, so maybe that would be.
Well, I'm just thinking, I mean, even though it may not happen, it may.
Yeah.
And I just think if there's something we think about in the front end,
Absolutely
rather than
understand
deal
that.
with the debacle.
Yeah.
Is that something you think should be built into the policy, or would that be protocol that the administration would have to come up
That would be protocol.
I think
Yeah.
we-
It's not
I
I
think
don't.
we reinforce the policy though. So it's the superintendent would create the protocol in order for the notifications, the proper notifications to be made. It could even be something as simple as that.
You know, I'm thinking even like the updates that, like currently Dr. Graham sends out, can be included in there. You can do a school messenger blast. You can do there's all kinds of things that can be done here. But I think to your point, we just need to think about what is going to be done. Something needs to be done so no one's caught unaware.
So then, do you want to adjust or edit that particular policy?
Sure.
And do you need us to vote on this group? Or is this just a first reading and we don't vote?
My understanding is that we can vote, we could vote tonight to adopt this in form, but that's it.
So if we vote to adopt it in form and then there are changes, we have to go back to adopt it again. So
Yeah.
would you consider, because we know there's going to be a change, just let that change happen, bring it back for a second reading, and then we can vote and be done?
Yep.
Would that make sense?
Yep, so to be clear though, you want me to add in that
I don't
it's
want
the-
you to do anything, I'm just making that.
Well, let's have the discussion and make the recommendation. So
But can I just, it also says that last sentence, the rules may be added, deleted, or edited at any time, thereafter during the school year following the same process. So if you jump back to the beginning of that paragraph, it does outline the process. So the school council is involved, dissemination among educated staff, students. So I think that covers it. Because if you make any changes,
It's just not stated that it's through a hard copy of a, is that what you're
Right,
thinking?
so
Like
we don't wanna-
Like at the
we
beginning
don't-
of the year, the kids, do they receive, I know in the district that I teach in, at the beginning of their agendas, that's where the handbook is. So
Right.
they get a hard copy of the handbook at
Yes.
the beginning. So I think his concern is, will we then have to reprint
Exactly.
handbook?
Oh,
You
no.
don't wanna charge
Oh, no.
you- Well,
Yeah.
no, if it's the same process, yeah, you could be arguing.
It
that.
just says disseminated, it doesn't say.
But this has happened before, because I was on the high school council, and there were changes, and it was like a piece of paper that was slipped into it. I mean, that,
Right, but it just seems to me that if one sentence is inserted in there for clarification purposes only, it gets rid of all the
so what would the sentence proposed to be?
I'm not prepared.
Oh, come on, wait a minute, let's finish this part and then we'll jump, because I want to move.
I don't know, give me
What
a
if
moment
it-
to take a look at it.
All right,
If it
you're
said
gonna-
something like that the it was up to the superintendent to determine the best, pass the buck, but to determine the best possible way of getting the word out to faculty.
Disseminating
Yeah.
disseminating the change.
Is that, and then.
All right, so
and then
that,
she
is
could
that
maybe
the, is
do-
that the gist of what you're looking for? And how do the rest of you feel about this?
are we printing handbooks in this day and age, hard copies for everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
But they're in the agenda book that we received,
Yeah.
which is about this big, and it has.
And is it also online, available
Yeah, but it
online?
maybe an MGL too, like to print it. There's something about that.
So anyway, let's resolve this.
So if you add at the end, rules may be added, deleted, or edited at any time thereafter during the school year following the same process, and said changes communicated to all appropriate parties or.
So why don't we do this? You know the gist, does everybody understand where Neil's going right now? So do you have any concerns about adding that? Are you okay with adding that? That's the first question. That idea, and if not, speak now, because I'm moving on. Steve,
That's on the dissemination of any new rules.
of any new changes?
Changes during the year.
Correct.
As long as it does, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So actually, is this change even necessary? Because it says,
Let Steve finish.
I
So
was just going to say, are we putting in the line that just basically says that it's the superintendent's responsibility
Exactly.
to disseminate
And I want
any changes that occur during the year?
Exactly. All right, Mark.
Never mind. My question
You
is
got what
answered.
you needed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody
And
else?
As long as it's in compliance with Mass General Law, like if you know. If it's
Yeah, but I think that's
yeah,
assumed
it
in the
is,
policies,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, hopefully she won't have
So
to
if
use
that's
it
the
then.
gist and nobody has an issue with it, then let's let Susan go back and work with Dorothy and craft some language and then bring it back to us versus us trying to craft it here. How does that work?
Sorry, but yeah.
Don't be sorry.
No, that's a good point.
Because I think I think that the first reading we can, this is why we do it, right?
Yep.
And then when you come back, we can make those changes. How's that?
That's
That work?
great. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And that conversation is good because going through these policies is just so important. All right, I'm going to jump to the 2017 MASC Summer Institute. Actually, I think you might. Is that what you're looking for? No, I printed one out. I thought you had it. Anyway, let me go back and grab it. So, I don't know if each of you received this. Thank you so much. And if not, I think I forwarded it on. MASC is having a summer camp. So, and I think, Alita, what is it, $25, $50? What was it?
It was 75.
Oh,
It's 2
okay.
days.
Clearly, I was off.
It's 2 days.
Oh, for the 2 days.
Yeah.
So if you're interested and the information on what it covers is in there, please let Alita know. I want you to keep in mind our own goal-setting session, which Dorothy is going to be at, which is going to include many of these modules, is coming on June 21st. So keep that in mind. But, and certainly the other really big professional development, and it's, I don't even know how to say it, it's like immersing yourself, is in November with MASC, MASS Joint Combined Conference, and it's really intense and really good stuff. But if you want to tune up, feel free to attend this, and just let Alita know, okay? All right, so that's a quick one. All right, the next item is the subcommittee assignments. So I've spent so much time on this, not a complaint, but I want you to understand kind of where the thinking was before I hand these out. I've talked with a couple of other school committee chairs in other districts to see how they're doing things. One of the things that I've been thinking about, talked with Dorothy, talked with Brooke, talked with a couple of you to get your ideas too. I think over the past year or so, with the new administration in place, things have evolved in the district, right? So we've got new folks there, we've got new programs coming online. We're starting to kind of question some of the sacred cows. We're looking at, where are we and where do we want to be? And I think that the school committee itself, in our role of governance, needs to move along with that. So that's my long-winded way of saying, in a way, I think the way we're structured serves an old model. And so I'm going to make a couple of recommendations. They're not really crazy, but over time you'll see, I think, how it's going to change. So given that, and given the fact that the school committee's role is to provide governance, not to direct the work of the administration, I'm going to hand these out. And I think there's only a couple of really big changes, but they're even not that big. So we're going to maintain our 3 core subcommittees of policy, personnel, and I'm proposing to change the name of the finance subcommittee to the warrant and budget committee. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through kind of where my head is on this. I asked Brooke and Alita if they would pulse the community of other superintendents and school committees in the state to find out how they're structured. And what I was really interested in was how often do they meet and what's their charge? Because we keep operating on the same, we think it's serving us well, but I don't know that it truly is. And to just see how others are doing it. And what became really obvious is that we meet a lot. And in order for us to be meeting a lot, we need to be doing a lot of work. Now, the past year, I don't think we would have gotten to the point in 1 year where the district is now with a really clean budget, with some programs set in place to keep moving forward. And that's why the warrant and budget subcommittee is changing its name. Because it really is, let's get back to the business of monitoring and governance instead of directing. Now, I'm not being critical. In fact, I don't know how to say this any more positively. If it weren't for the work that the finance subcommittee did, we would not be where we are at all, in tandem with the administration. But now that we're there, and now that things are clean, and now that we're building our reports, our regular reports, which we're looking forward to seeing, that's where we want the budget committee to be. It's really about those periodic warrants and making sure that those things, the pennies are where they need to be. And if you have questions, you have the opportunity to ask them, and then the focus on the budget. But other than that, large-scale efforts that should involve broad committee discussion, like what's our perspective on OPEB, that should be at the school committee level, because that involves everyone in the district, every taxpayer across all 3 towns. OPEB, E&D, that doesn't mean that those recommended agenda items wouldn't come up through the subcommittee, and in fact, that makes sense that they would, but I think it's important that all of the school committee members and the public have the visibility into these large-scale, big issues that are going to impact the district. Does that make sense? Okay. So for that committee, I'm trying to keep the folks that have tenure on committees, because they have that knowledge, to keep those in place, and then start to slowly introduce some new folks so that we don't lose that history as people decide to stay or go. So Neil, Mark, and Kathy, I'm going to put Kathy on the finance committee right now. You're doing yeoman's work. But I think that...
Don't start screwing up, okay? Because then you won't put me on stuff.
You can't screw up, but if you do, we reserve the right to make changes. The charge is on the far right-hand column. So every one of us needs to put together a calendar of expected activities at the school committee level, and I'll be working on that through the goal setting session and at the subcommittee, so that we and our publics know what's coming. Neil.
Okay, so
I knew this was gonna happen.
I'm just looking at the charge, warrant and budget committee. It's not a sexy name anymore.
I know. Well, we can change it to something. You can call it something sexy, but go ahead.
Yeah, W and B or something like that is better. But that being said, the charge, can you actually define what's different? Like what you're saying is different from what we're doing, because I think it's easier conceptually to understand what it is that you feel we shouldn't be doing that we've been doing. And I'm not saying that it's critical, but I'm just saying that if we're evolving something, then I think it's kind of key that we discuss what we shouldn't be doing, or we just don't.
I don't think I don't think that you shouldn't be doing. I think what this subcommittee should be doing is this.
Okay.
I think that, and I'll take ownership of this too. Last year, one of the charges was provide a, talk to us about OPEB and where should we be. But I think that lots of that discussion and then bringing in this expert should happen. We've talked about that before.
Sure.
Should happen at the school committee level, so that we are all working with the same knowledge base in order to have a rich discussion, make a decision, and move on. So I think those types of topics, those bigger topics, where they may have started to originate in the subcommittee this year because of all of the depth of the work that was done through the restructure of the budget, it would just make sense that it was going to happen that way. But now that that's done and we've turned it over, the budget itself, to the administration with our governance, I think now those larger scale issues are up here.
Yep.
And then, do you want to jump in? Because you have perspective on this too.
I'm not trying to put anyone on the hot seat with that.
No,
I'm just
no,
trying to get an understanding.
Does that not make sense,
No,
though?
but my perception of any of the subcommittees is that's where the eggs are cracked, the omelets are made, right? And then we're talking about, we're tasting the omelet here at the school committee. We're deciding whether we like the omelet, whether we want to send it back and have you make another one. But the point is, a lot of the lifting and the nitty-gritty and so forth, it takes time, right? That could, if we do all the subcommittees here, I'm just saying, I'm thinking, wow, that's an 8-hour meeting.
That's right, but that would come out of discussion that we would have at the school committee if it was like Susan said, you know, I think I need a little bit more information on this. I'm not really sure. And Kathy said, well, I think it should be this other way. Then we could say, okay, you guys, this is what we need you to look into. Come back to the next meeting and report.
Simply put, you're looking to drive it from top down rather than bottom up. Is that what you're saying, as far as the?
Well, everything is.
I get that, but I'm talking about as far as the functionality of the way things. Not that the idea is top down, but you're going to start with the conversation here.
The committee determines.
And then you're going to charge W&D.
He's not loving it.
You're going to charge them with doing a specific thing and working.
Right, and it may be that you guys say, we think we need to do more on this. But I think the subcommittees are responsible to the committee.
All right. I don't have a big issue with the way you're describing it. Who cares if I do, right? But I mean, I'm just saying, I don't have a big issue with what you're saying, because I think that's okay, because we will be able to do what you're saying is we will be able to still not, don't take this the wrong way, but pick rocks up and look underneath them and understand.
What we won't be doing, and this is where I am going to ask you to jump in, we won't be in the administration's job function. That's what we won't, and it's not just with finance, it's with all of the subcommittees. I think it's time to pull back to a governance role versus working alongside the administration. Now I'm turning it over to you because you.
Well, I think, from my perspective too, I mean, when we did the work and we went out and took a look at what was happening across the state, because actually you didn't finish that thought. You started down that road, but then you didn't finish it. But one of the things that we found was there really aren't, I don't know if there are any finance subcommittees as such. They're much more inclined towards budget committees and much more inclined to meet, like for example, I think it was Northborough, Southborough when I talked to them, like maximum maybe 5 meetings, 6 meetings a year, and it was only during the budget season, right? And so I think it's just, I think it's more a case of just defining exactly what is the role, because what we found this year, and I hate to speak for Pat, but very often it would take us like almost all day to prep the day before our subcommittee meetings, and then very often when we'd leave here and take your advisement, we would go back most of our Wednesday afternoon and sometimes Thursday as we were pulling things together. And I think that we just need to streamline it. And so then when we were starting to take a look at what was happening across the state, we found that there were many that just didn't have anything like that at all. So I think that, but I also want to say too, and I did say this to Chairman Ramosko as well, I would totally agree with what she said. I think without some of the work that we did this year and going in the depth that we did, I think it was huge to get us to where we are right now. So it's not a negative at all. I think it's just a case of just re-examining the charge as we evolve. What is the charge of that group? And when you look across the state, you say, yeah, I think we can bring this in line a little bit more now with what's the norm, what that norm is out there.
And the finance subcommittee this past year has gotten more done than in the 4.5 years I've been on the school committee.
Yeah. So.
Hey, it's not all about you, fella. So don't go there. But what I'm saying is, we don't need that depth anymore.
Right, but we need more than 5 to 6 meetings.
I'm not suggesting that you have. I don't think
that was just an example I was giving of Northborough, Southborough. I think it was Northborough, Southborough.
All right. I mean, we know there are obviously substantial challenges that are going to be happening in this district over the next couple of years, and I just think it's really important not to. And I agree, that's not big, thick Jersey barrier between, but I get that.
With windows.
Yeah, with windows, and we can wave at each other, but I get that, right? And I agree. If you love something, set it free, right? I mean.
He's not happy with me right
now. But, no, I agree 100% that we need to make sure that the functionality, and from the sounds of what you're saying, that it's still there. We would be charged, we'd be able to look into things, not to the extent that and I agree, things have evolved. I mean, you know, you walked into, I can't say it on, but, you know, you walked into a lot of trouble, and there was a lot of trouble before that, and now hopefully we're sailing to calmer waters here. So I get that needs to evolve.
You know, I used the example, this morning's example. I thought we had such a great meeting this morning. Like, I'm just speaking of a turn here. I know I digress for a moment, but I feel even that committee has evolved. Where I don't know, I speak just for myself, but I mean, when we can come in and we can say, okay, here's something we've pulled together, let's take a look at it, and you go, yep, just the salient points now. Like, even that, compared to where we were 8 or 9 months ago, is huge. Like, I just think that we've done great work, and I feel very comfortable with the dynamic that's in that group right at this point in time.
Sure. Okay. That's all I got. Mark may have something to say.
I don't know, I apologize, because I don't know where I got this. I think it may have been from Dorothy, but it's guidance on the operating of board subcommittees. And it does, if it makes, and maybe this is where you got it, if it makes anyone feel better, there's a question, what subcommittees do you need? And it says that the most common ones are budget, warrant, policy.
I didn't get it there, but that's good to know.
Yeah, so there is no finance listed on the most common subcommittees.
Yeah.
So I think that.
I think that I got it. So I think, and I think Neil is gonna. I think you're well. In the past, and Mark too, like the finance subcommittee used to like come in every 2 weeks and talk about the warrant, and that was really all we got. Right? That was as deep as it got. This was.
There was no planning aspect of that committee.
And we used to have budget advisory committee.
But there was not even the opportunity to do that, right? So that's why I think things shifted, because they had to get us, and again, in 1 year. Okay, I'm not even gonna look at you because you're gonna get upset. So Mark, in 1 year, the amount of work that you guys did is like crazy to get us where we are. So there's a happy medium, because it's never gonna, well, it's not gonna be you're just reviewing warrants and you're not able to get in there. But at the same time, you're not going to need to do the work, and nor should you do the work that was done this past year. So it's in the middle, which is, the key is the warrants, any questions on the warrants, you know, and are there some other, you know, the reporting structure that you guys need to?
I think that's really key, that the school committee needs to agree to the reporting structure. Like, if we can get that before you for the next school committee meeting.
Do it, that's
and
great.
Suggestions, and we can get that in place with the administration. And then the policies that are building the framework, we've got those things put together, we'll get them to you. But if we can get that set up, then we don't have to be, I think, going to the administration quite as much.
Well, then people get used to it.
Because it's gonna happen,
Right.
it'll become a natural course of business.
Well, and to that point too, if I can speak.
Yeah,
to that,
absolutely,
Well,
please.
to that point too, you know, like Pat and Maroney and I were talking about next year, as we're looking at evolving for next year, right? And saying, maybe what she needs to do is give a monthly report every month and say, here's what, and to your point, it would be just the same kind of thing all the time, so that people would get, our public as well as you, would get used to seeing the exact same key cost centers or what have you. You know.
Well, I knew this was going this direction, which is why we're doing the corrective action plan, which is why we're trying to put a process in place that becomes standard no matter who's sitting in this seat, that seat, whatever.
Exactly.
I get that.
Right.
But we also want to make sure that some of the things that, no fault of the past, but weren't done in the past, become a standard that
Right.
are continuously done forward.
Which is the evolution of this function,
Fine,
too.
I'll weigh in.
Well,
So there are just two things. So I recommend people go back and reread that one that we're adopting, the CL, because that is the administrative reports policy that we didn't have, that I think is going to sort of mandate those regular reports. So I think that's one thing. And then one other thing, and I know that this is not on the agenda, but in the same packet, the bylaw, there was a recommendation, this is just guidance on the operating of board subcommittees.
Yeah.
It said the bylaw should also make clear who appoints the chairs and members, not just the members of the subcommittees, but that our bylaws should maybe say who, like whether we elect them within the subcommittee or whether you or the vice chair appoints
No,
chair.
okay, so
It's
this,
on
our
our
bylaws, Mark and I
Our
have talked
bylaws are
about.
silent on the
Yeah.
chairmanship of the
Right.
subcommittees.
Yeah, okay, so
Right,
I just
so
wanted, is that something?
I'm
you want
not
policy to
selecting
look
your
at?
chairs, you guys in your subcommittees are selecting
But we
your
should
chairs.
probably put that into the bylaws, right?
Well, the bylaws, honestly, and Mark, you know, you and I are on the same page here, when we were before all the crazy went on, but those bylaws need to be reviewed because they're what, 13 years, some crazy number of years old.
We could use some review, yeah.
And, yeah, so we're gonna end up reviewing those
Okay.
anyway,
Okay.
but that's gonna involve legal.
Yes, that's why, but I just wanted to make sure that for this year, I knew how to go about because I know last year it happened within the subcommittee.
Yeah, and then I think prior, the previous chair assigned chairs, is that how it went?
I don't remember, but I do know that some school district do assign chairs. I don't think that that's,
Right, so have
I
a
don't like that. I think that
process.
Okay. I just
democracy
wanna make
means
sure-
that those three people can pick who they think is the most qualified and could handle all that heavy lifting, not me. I don't think that's appropriate. But if you want me to.
It just said the recommendation is that it should be in the bylaws and it should be stated whether it's the chair or the vice chair. It doesn't actually say whether the subcommittee elects their own, but I was assuming if our bylaws are our bylaws unless that.
We can change them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's up to us to
Right.
figure out how
Yeah.
we want to run.
Yep.
That's,
Yeah.
So how do you guys feel about that?
I wanted to make sure when we met as a subcommittee that we were doing it right.
So you guys
Just
bring
'cause
up a recommendation
Dorothy
to
handed
us.
this to, you know, the.
When we get to that section,
Okay.
just bring it up to us because, yeah, let's, because frankly, if you're looking for opinion, and I'm only one of 8, one of 7 tonight, but I would prefer that the subcommittees identify who their chair is going to be.
I mean, the balance is you could have a chair who rules the committee and that could make the committee unhappy, and so you want to balance that versus
But
people
if,
choosing their chair.
here's the thing, all right, in the unforeseen event that you've got a subcommittee and it's not working out, and you've got 4 people on a subcommittee and 3 people are frustrated with one person and it's not working out, then it's up to that subcommittee to monitor itself and to course correct. I'm not your mama.
Well, also, a school committee can dissolve a committee anytime it feels like it.
That's right.
That
So-
isn't.
Right.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay. So anyway, moving on. Personnel. So Kathy, Lynn, and myself will keep this one. Personnel is going to end up stepping back a little bit more, and it looks like a lot of bullets, Kathy, but it really are. It's the things that we've done this year versus the heavy lifting we had to do last year.
Yep.
So it's, the calendar of meeting dates and key topics, supporting the superintendent in developing her annual goals, mid-cycle, year-end evaluations, superintendent annual comp change, any new job descriptions and salary ranges that we would, that the administration would bring to the subcommittee and the subcommittee would bring to the school committee to recommend adoption for. The school committee manual, which is a Herculean effort too, and I know that's coming along, but that's got to be, and we need a policy on that. We need a policy on that school committee manual every year being
Personnel's
revised.
doing that?
What?
The school committee manual, personnel's doing that?
Yes.
That was our goal for the year, one of our goals.
Well, I get that. But I'm not on the committee, so I don't.
No, it's going to come to the school committee June 7th, so it's still in draft form.
Cool.
That's-
So that'll help with some of the corralling, all the crazy mushrooming stuff that goes on here. Well, used to. Okay, maybe not. Whatever. And then for each one of these, not just the 2 subcommittees I mentioned, it is critical that when we have meetings, just like at the school committee, the following meeting, we're reviewing the previous meeting's minutes. They will be reviewed, adjusted, approved, and posted. And everybody needs to agree to that, okay? And then with policy, Susan, I'm so impressed with the work that you've done with Dorothy on this policy review. I was nervous because I hadn't seen anything, and I'm just really impressed with this, so thank you for shepherding that. and I've talked with Steve and Elise, and I think that you're coming in at a good time to come into policy, because that's where all the rules and the regulations are. And otherwise, if you're not sure what the policies are, we make mistakes. Like, we make mistakes. Some of them we really don't need to be making, and we don't know until we've made it, and now we have to go back and redo something. But I think it will immerse you more into that. And I'd love to start you guys there. It will give you more knowledge. I know you could probably go and read all the policies yourself. You're crazy if you do. But this way it's chunked out with Susan, and she's been doing it so she can guide you, and you'll be busy. Yes, you are going to have to work with policy.
Well, right, but you don't have that, well, maybe it is covered in there, but that's really key, the fiscal policies. Like, are you...
So here's how it would work, Neil. So here's how it would work. You would say in your subcommittee,
Yeah.
we need this from policy in order for us to adhere to some of the recommendations that were provided or that we agreed to, that we were going to do whenever.
Right. I'm just saying for them, is that under the Champion New NRSD specific policies as recommended? Is that where you're kind of putting the fiscal policy recommendations under that section?
Well, I think
because
go ahead,
it's not
Susan.
the new policy suite.
No, I'm actually very curious about this whole process too, because I know sometimes in a regular school committee meeting, suggestions or recommendations will be made for policy development, and I take that seriously, right? So I don't know if there should be a directive straight from a sub, so I understand when it happens in this committee, I understand, but if there are recommendations that are coming from another subcommittee, how do we communicate that?
See, that's the issue,
And then
right?
when I
That's
give it back,
the issue. You just hit on why this has to, we have to work really hard at this, because a recommendation for a policy doesn't come from a subcommittee. It comes from, does everybody at the school committee level understand that we have a need for whatever nope, I'm doing this, whatever the policy is. Give me the name of a policy that you want, or functional.
I would love DBK to be
Free
separate
pizza
from
Fridays.
DBK.
No, or for legit.
Well, just for instance, the one that came up last time about the school lunch balances, right? That is not a J policy. It's actually an E policy that we don't have. Mask doesn't even have a policy about
Right.
it.
So it's a
Dorothy
district-specific policy.
Yeah. Nope. Well, no. Mask is developing one in June. They're waiting for federal guidelines. So I reached out to her. She's gonna give us their recommendation to use as a foundation for, so we could tailor it towards ours, because there's if you go online on the mask policy manual where they host all the different districts, there's dozens and dozens of districts. I went through. Only 5 of them actually have a policy that specifies a specific balance, and
Do we need it?
Well, that's what I'm. Yes.
But that's the part of the community. So we would have, the way I understand that this is working, just like the reports, we have the policy recommendations that would bubble up to school committee. Hopefully next meeting we can bring this forward to you guys. Then the school committee would say, yeah, sounds good, doesn't sound good, whatever. Then the subcommittee, the policy subcommittee would be charged with creating policy.
But they would need guidance from.
But they would also talk with us on that, because some of the things
That's
you're talking
right.
about, you're saying,
Right.
well, there's this policy, but we're saying, well, there is a specific issue that we want to make sure is addressed based on the forensic audit or, MASBO, whatever.
Mhm.
And then and then that bubbles back up to the school committee, and between
That's
the
right.
conversations that happened, here's where you go, how does that sound, school committee?
That's
blah,
right.
blah, blah.
See, here's the challenge, right? I know everybody we've been working in these silos. Some of that's going to start to break down as you guys start to work together more. There's going to be Kathy, right now you're currently the chair of personnel. You may end up working with Susan. There may be times when personnel and finance start working together, when we start looking at, do we have the right ranges that we want to recommend, right? So
but then what about so my understanding was that the subcommittees had to be small enough so that if like one person from budget and warrant, or warrant and budget would be.
That you don't have a quorum of the school
Yeah,
committee.
Yeah, so,
Right.
so it would just be like one other person comes in and, or.
Well,
it
quorum
would
is
be-
5.
So we wouldn't totally combine those subcommittees. to
And
discuss
even
it,
if
right?
you did, Mark, you would be able to answer this, even if you did, we could still post it.
Okay.
That's all.
Right, so-
It's just, we just gotta let the public know.
Right. Okay, good. Okay.
And it may,
Great.
I don't see that actually happening a ton. I just see like clarification, meeting for clarification
So
purposes,
how-
and then you guys
yeah.
run with it.
Because, yes, so there are a few policies that I've, can't be finalized with Dorothy until we get clarification from finance on.
Right.
So how do we go about making sure, like, that stuff, like, how do I force myself onto the warrant and budget agenda kind of thing?
Hard to say.
You send Neil an email and say,
Okay.
dude, I got something I need to talk to you
Okay.
about. Can I?
Right.
We talk, as long as we're not deliberating, as
Yeah.
long as it's not a quorum,
Gotcha.
do it in email so that it's trackable.
Yeah.
All that would need to be
Right.
done is have something put on the agenda if we're going to be there, or just frame, kind of like you did with a couple policies, and you frameworked it out and you sent it, I think, you know, everybody review, because we're going to be talking about this, same sort of way, and we can define things the other way too.
All right. Are we okay with this now? All right. Policy, just keep doing what you're doing, but you are gonna have to work with, finance, please. And, audit advisory, Mark, I'd love for you to stay on that if you would. Collective bargaining, Kathy and I are on it. I think it makes sense for us to stay on it. Jennifer Leone is still on it. We voted her in. I should probably put her on there. Well, no, she's not a school committee member, but she is still on there now as a resident. The Mabel Hale Fund, Steve, I'm asking if you would take that. I don't know a lot about it. Lynn has done it for the past 2 years, but it is a fun. Is it like a scholarship?
It's a fund that Mabel Hale, it's like a trust, and there's a certain amount of money available every year. And there has to be a committee, including one member of the school committee, that decides how the funds will be used annually.
So thank you for that. So we need to make sure that, do you know who that contact is? Well then, you know what, Steve, I would suggest that you
Usually the principal.
touch base with Lynn first, and then she can tell you who to reach out to. But I'd like you, that'll also get you into the school a little bit. So CPAC Elise, how does that, you okay with that?
Yeah.
It makes so much sense. I'm hoping that you're good with it. And Isabel Wells is wonderful to work with. You'll love her. And then technology, I took somebody off there. Who was on there? Lynn.
She won't mind.
I took Lynn off for a reason. But Neil, I got you on there. You're gonna like get me off of this? It's too much?
I actually, no, I really want to be on technology, but I was going to say you have Elise as an alternate. Could she just be a regular person?
Well, now, yes, you know what, I literally asked Alita, how many versions of this have I sent you? I'm rethinking, yeah, 4. So Elise, I actually, I had Lynn on there, and I didn't want to overload Elise, so now that Lynn's off, Elise, I'm going to put you on tech.
Yeah. No, I mean, you hit my 2 favorite things, special ed and technology. So.
Cool, perfect, good, I'm glad. I'm telling you, I spent a lot of time thinking about this. And now the big one. So, the Neshoba Regional High School Facility Committee. Okay, I need to talk through this with you guys, because we've talked about it. So this is, what are we doing with the high school? The facility itself. We've talked, Mark did a lot of really good work earlier in the year. It's documented, it's online, with what the process is for MSBA, what we might be looking at when we could enter, how much it may cost, with what we knew at the time. So that's your starting point. So here's the idea here is, And I'm trying not to put a quorum on this committee because I'm dying to get on it myself, but I can be in the background helping out if you need me to. Neil from Bolton, Susan, she's like, what are you doing to me? Susan from Lancaster, and Mark and Lynn from Stowe would be the school committee reps, but this is really an advisory committee, which means that there is school committee representation on it, but the committee that would be voting to move would include residents as well. So similar to what the task force committee was. It would also include administration. I really want to try to keep this honed in as much as we can because this group's going to have to meet and kind of move. So rather than, I remember on the task force it was like 20-something people and it would alternate.
The charter was never defined, so we never knew how many people were actually on the committee.
Exactly, for the quorum,
Right.
for the vote. Yes, exactly. So I'm trying to minimize this, and we can talk about it more, but you look over on the right-hand side with the charge. I've looked at the MSBA stuff. I've talked with MSBA briefly because I don't want to do this work for this committee. I want this committee to do the work, so I'm going to step out of it and give you the high-level pieces. So I think if you work from the date backwards, it's probably easier. So I'm going to go to the middle of this document. In October, I'm hoping that this group can have had enough time to get together. Look, a lot of the work's been done. We know what the issues are with the high school. I mean, all the reports have been done. All of the population studies have been done. I don't know what else we could do without actually formulating this committee. So in October, have this group come forward with a go, no-go recommendation on a statement of interest to the MSBA, which would then, if we're accepted, trigger the feasibility study. We need to start doing this, and we need to get going now. So how do you work back from that? Well, if you want to get with a recommended go, no-go to the school committee, which the school committee has to approve before you can go to the towns in order to talk to the towns, and the reason you're going to the towns is so that they can be prepared, because this would then be put on a warrant for an annual town meeting. Okay? What are the things that you would need to do? I know this is kind of like, well, what am I supposed to do? So I tried to give you, without spoon feeding, I tried to give you big steps, and my recommendation would be to contact the MSBA, and they have a site with everything on it. I can send you the links if you want. But even as far as placing ads in the local papers to recruit community members, and one of the things MSBA will tell you when you speak with them is, you want to ask for community members that have some understanding or experience in education or building, which is why Lynn should be on this, or some other aspect to start to inform the discussions. So Susan is a teacher. She's bringing that perspective of the educator to this process. Lynn has worked on huge building projects. That's what her background is. She would bring that experience. Mark is an accountant. He would bring that experience. And then you would ask the community, and you guys decide what are those, characteristics that you would like the community to consider. I will tell you, and I will absolutely pass along to you, I've had a resident from Stowe who's very interested, and I have a resident from Bolton who's very interested, and I will pass that along to you. Okay, so I don't want to go into too much more on this one. Yeah.
Is there one, so in thinking about this, 'cause Mark and I really didn't have a chance to really, because it was sort of a tail end sort of side thought, right? This whole thing going into
Yes.
last year.
Well, you didn't have time to do it either.
Right, but just in a couple conversations that we've had off the cuff, not just Mark and I, but like this go no go. I think maybe defined, if you're going to do go no go, go and here's what it is, MSBA and
Right.
everything. No go without MSBA and OSOI. here's what that means too. And so that, without an SOI, we need the SOI to actually, for them to be able to say, okay, rehab is one thing, new building is another thing.
That's right.
But if there is no SOI, there are still things that we will have to address regardless. And I think that if it's a no-go, then people need to understand there are some crazy expenses involved just with
Just to
getting the
maintain
building
that building.
to status. If people say no-go, no SOI, no look,
That's right.
there's just going to be a ton of things that have been pushed off that have to happen, or the state's going to shut us down.
That's right. And Neil, because eventually you guys are going to be creating a deck, right? Not an exhaustive deck, but a deck. And one of the pages should be, if we decide not to,
Right.
these are the realities,
Right.
right?
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to let you guys set your meetings up and do that. For each of the main subcommittees, the 3 main subcommittees and this one, please elect a chair, obviously, and elect your own secretary. And that secretary would be responsible for taking your minutes and making sure. Okay? All right, so in order for us to actually enact this, according to policy BDF, we need to vote to add an advisory committee to the school committee. And thank you, Alita, for your help with this. I think we need to canonize her. So, ma'am, would you consider, so I'd like someone to,
So it's the facility committee.
the Neshoba Regional High School Facility Committee.
I move that we add a Neshoba Regional High School Facilities Committee to the list of school committee, subcommittee, and advisories.
As an advisory. Perfect, thank you. And can I get a second? Thank you, Elise. Any questions? You're exhausted. You're sick of hearing me, and I am too. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. You were going to say something.
No, I was going to just appreciate all the work it took you to be able to
Thanks.
organize this, because this is a necessary process we need to do.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And I think now that all that big stuff that we've been working on for the past year or so is done, it feels good to kind of move things forward. All right.
Do we need to vote the new name warrant and
I
budget?
think we do. But is it a technicality?
We need to establish our committees, and they're unestablished until we do so.
You don't have to vote these.
We do, that's what the bylaws say.
I thought
You have
that
no subcommittees until you actually vote for them after your organizational meeting. They all die after the elections.
I knew they died, but I didn't think that they.
Oh, it's only a vote.
All right, well, fine. Okay, does somebody want to make a motion? Can you believe this? I'm not supposed to do that, but you know.
I move we
Thank you,
add
Kathy.
the listed subcommittees on the FY 17-18 school committee, subcommittee, and advisory assignments sheet. Warrant and budget, personnel, policy, warrant advisory, collective bargaining, Maple Hill Fund, CPAC, and technology. We already voted for the facilities committee.
All right, you might as well second.
Second.
Wait, you got a second from Mark? Yeah, now I'm going to have a comment too, but go
I
ahead.
propose that we change this to the budget and warrant subcommittee.
That's fine. As
No,
amended.
because I know this sounds really stupid, but we're going to be saying W and B all the time, and it's so easier to say B and W.
You know what?
I know
Whatever
that sounds
works.
insane,
As long as
but-
you're happy, I'm good. As amended. Okay, now I must say something.
I've hit a new low.
Sir,
Yes.
I want to see it in the bylaws because the attorneys told me several times.
Well, I just happen to have those bylaws open right here.
Do you think he did that on purpose? I kind of do.
The school committee will have no standing committees. However, it
Right,
may
we know
establish
that.
special subcommittees at its annual organizational meeting or as necessary.
I believe
These
Mark's right.
subcommittees may be created for a specific purpose and to make specific recommendations for committee action.
Okay, so where's the part about having to vote? You see, here's the reason why
A
it's
school committee shall have the option of appointing subcommittees made up solely of members of the school committee to accomplish specific tasks. Such subcommittees shall report to the committee after each of their meetings and submit written reports. All subcommittees shall be subject to open meeting law.
Okay, so the question, I mean, this is, see, here's.
And then,
No, let me just say something. This is ridiculous. Okay, so here's the issue, Mark. You are removing the option to make changes unless those changes are made in public. So if something isn't working out,
it's got to be public.
then I'm gonna have to share with everybody why it's not working out.
Right. So the appointment member shall be appointed by the school committee chair, subject to the approval of the committee.
All right, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Resident expert. Okay. Oh, thank God that's over. All right. Where are we?
Old business.
Oh, we have no old business. We really have a lot of baggage, but no old business right now. Subcommittee, Finance.
All right, so I'm gonna start.
You're gonna what?
I'm gonna start by ringing the bell. So we had a conversation. Today. We talked about a couple things. Obviously, one of the things that really frameworked a lot of this was last week's annual audit that came out.
Yeah.
And some of the concerns that were shared, ours and so on. And one of this is just our fiscal situation that we're in right now, and this is serious. So moving forward, we've been dipping into E&D at some pretty hefty levels. It got cut down to $1 million for the last 2 years, but it looks very possible that we're not going to be able to do that next year, and that maybe next year, and then have considerably less. Like we had talked about that as a scenario a couple months ago, and it looks more and more like that's a direct possibility within the next couple years. If we keep working down this 2-3 years, we'll have nothing left, and we will have to. We're faced. I guess what I'm saying is we're faced with some very serious decisions that have to be made by the administration over starting, I think, with this upcoming year. And you're going to find that if we can't use $1 million, we're going to have nothing left in the bank at the end of the year for that, for any sort of emergencies that come up. So what does that mean? I mean, it means we need to find the savings. Additionally, the alarm was put out. We need to do something with OPEB. Because that liability just keeps growing and growing, and it's becoming massive, right? And that can actually hurt our bond rating because it now gets put with bonds. So we have to address that, which means we need to have some serious conversations with the towns. And I know that Pat is going to a OPEB seminar within the next.
There she is.
She went today.
There she
it was
is.
today.
Lunch and learn.
Lunch and learn.
What did you learn at the? Well, when he's done.
And then finally, where I'm at, the SOI and the high school, and we have huge debts that have to be addressed within the year. And I know that there's been a lot of heartache about tuition raises and things like this, but we're in dire straits. And I hate to put it that way. I'm not trying to freak people out, but we need to really get control on this within the next year or so with a very solid plan, or this is not going to be the same school district in 2 or 3 years from now. And I don't know how I can be any more serious about that, but truly that's the challenge that lay ahead.
Alrighty then.
And then it was fun and games for the rest of the meeting today.
Yes.
I think thinking along those same sorts of lines, we were talking about the fact that if you think about it, we originally, when we first started to develop that budget this year, we had put in $500,000 from E&D. We couldn't do it, and then we moved it up to $800. I think that was the first time that you had seen it in January, was at $800. And then we said, we can't do that. We got to put it to $1 million. And keep in mind that the forensic audit said, when are you getting off of this little hamster wheel?
Yeah.
And again, if you just look very simply at this, that means $1 million cut. Like, that's what it's gonna mean. Well, $1 million cut, where is that going to come from? Because a district our size with just typical contractual obligations is going to increase about 1.6 million every year between benefits and salaries. That's just the reality. So if you do that, coupled with a notion that you're going to take a stop with that E&D with $1 million every year, it's really not there. So I think the only reason I think that we had this preliminary discussion today was just to say, here's where we are. We just want to put it out there that, yeah, we're thinking about this.
We need a plan.
We need a plan. We need to strategize.
So you guys, Superintendent Clenchey and Miss Maroney, y'all need to giddy up on that.
For us, I know this year, I can't tell you the number of times people came and said to me, don't reduce. The only way.
Don't reduce.
Well, just reductions, period, or make cuts, or what have you. And I'm saying the only way we can do this next year is through reductions. You know, I think that we were conservative this year. We still have positions that we've had to cut. You kind of can't have your cake and eat it too. We need to be strategic and thoughtful about how we're going to carry this through. So I think it's just saying we're looking forward to next year's budget season already, and we're saying right now we can't continue to keep up what we've been doing because the funds are just not going to be there.
To be clear, we're not in a disaster situation right now, right?
Yeah.
But we are speeding at the wall at 60 miles an hour. The wall's not going to move. We got to do what we can to put the brakes on, okay? And that's kind of, it's a crazy analogy, but saying this stuff now is important because this message needs to get out. People need to understand where we are so that, you know, we have time to make plans, and it's not fair for us to come out to the towns and people and everything and say, oh, by the way, you've got to vote on a budget tomorrow and here's what's happening, right? So you've got to really put that forward, I think, publicly early enough to...
So what's going to happen next steps for you folks? You're going to come up with some different models?
I think it goes back to thinking some things through, like whether it's a pre-K program or what have you. I mean, that's not a good example necessarily, but it is an example. You know, I'll put it a different example. I don't know that we can afford all the electives at the high school right now. That's an example. You know, like I don't know that we can continue to afford the number of instructional aides if they are not absolutely necessary. I mean, they're just places that we've got to look at and start to make some shifts. And I keep talking about shifting in the sand, you know, because I'm not saying that we just cut, but I am saying we have to shift where our focus and where our money is going. You know, we've got some needs at that high school that I feel that we need to make some shifts. I'm not prepared to talk about that tonight, but there are some needs over there that we've got to take a look at, you know. And one of the reasons I love about being in Neshoba is how much people value the education. Like, I value the education. That's one of the things I love about being here. So I think we're just being proactive, saying,
absolutely.
Listen, we're just putting out to the public. We're starting the discussion right now about 2019 budget.
And we want you to do that because we don't want to get to a point where we have to do something hurriedly and quick that's going to have, you know, repercussions down the line. And we don't want to get into a situation like a neighboring town. And I'm not talking about Lancaster. I'm talking about another town that just went through a big override and got the override for the schools and still took cuts.
19, right? I think it was 19 cuts.
With the $1 million override,
Yeah.
the vast majority for the schools. And that's what we said we were trying to avoid this year. But I think, I talked with our state rep, and she said at the state level, they're like holding still because the money's starting to dry up.
Yeah.
So
we didn't even consider some of the drastic side of changes that could happen with grants and money available from the state. And so that's not even on.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Although it came like the 10.6 billion right now that's on the table at the federal level. I mean, you know, they're saying, well, it's not this or it's not that, but those of us in the industry know exactly what it is. That will impact Neshoba Regional School District, if those cuts are made. Like they're, which I don't think that they're going to be right now to the extent that they're on the table, but I'm just saying, it's a shifting environment, and we just need to really be cautious.
So I finish that thought, just hold it, because people will then say, anybody who's paying attention to this conversation will say, well, what the heck are you talking about an SOI and the high school and so forth? And I think it's really important to understand.
We're going to pay for something.
That we're in a situation where it's the perfect storm.
Right.
There has been so much deferred maintenance, so many deferred projects for years. We've been taking the money, we've been reallocating the money to other things. It hasn't been getting done, and the laundry list that I know we're going to come out with is scary. I mean, if we let this go for a couple more years, I mean, it's going to become a health risk to actually be in there in that school at that point. And I don't mean to, again, I'm not. But walking down the line,
I'm more concerned that if we don't get into the rotation with the state, we lose those dollars. And then where are you at? So, yeah.
So it's all about being proactive right now, I think, just and being transparent, saying this is what our thinking is.
All right, so can we move on from there? You guys got to work together, and I'm sure, Pat, thank you very much. I do want to hear about OPEB. And oh, by the way, on June 21st, Superintendent Clenchey has committed to bringing in
Steve Hammond,
Dr. Hammond. So that's goodness, because we need to start that OPEB, serious OPEB discussion at the committee level, so everybody's on even footing. Okay, moving on. Personnel.
We met on the 15th, and we reviewed and edited a draft of the school committee manual. The revised draft, I don't know if that's what you call it.
Yeah.
Lynn and Loretta. Lynn and Loretta. What are you talking about?
Loretta.
I don't know where that came from. It was a combination.
Just
of
keep going.
Lynn,
Just keep going. These people want to go home.
I'm having such a good time tonight.
Wow, after that last one, that was good.
So the draft will be sent out prior to the June 7th meeting, so folks can review it, and then if there are any additional edits, and when I send it out, I will also give you an idea of the process we followed in putting it together.
Okay, thank you, Madam.
You're welcome.
Susan, Purse Policy.
We have not met since the last regular school committee meeting, so I did go over the MASBO recommendations, and the only 3 policies I found that needed to be written, so in anticipation of the next agenda, were the there was the just to act upon the school choice, the lunch thing that's on the table, and then the leases and other financing agreements, which I think is one of the ones that we sent over to finance, right, for you guys to look at, the DBK?
DBK committing funds?
Yeah. So once that one's done, I think all 3 that came out of the MASBO recommendations will be handled, but if you have any other ones that you wanted to put on our radar, that would be
So, you know what would be good is, Neil, if you guys could get together at finance and come up with your recommended policies and what the overall function of those are, and if you guys agree at the subcommittee level, bring it up to here and then meet with Susan.
And then also the fees, the review of, oh great, awesome. The annual review of fees, that's gonna go in when we do the June 7th, we meet with Dorothy to finish section J, and that'll be in that part.
Okay.
That was another one you wanted, Margaret. Yeah.
So I'll let you guys collaborate.
So hopefully one of the 2 new members will be able to join, because it's a scheduled meeting already with Dorothy on June 7th from 4 to 6. Oh, sorry.
All right. Jones, Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Anything on audit advisory? You're going to be done now.
We are kind of complete for the moment, in the sense that an audit has happened, we've reviewed it, the committee has seen it, but an audit is now very shortly to be in process for the fiscal year 17. You heard that we did meet with the auditor, I believe, the last time, and I think we'll be quiescent probably until audit work is done.
But you're dissolved now. So do
we
we-
need to be reappointed.
That's my point.
Representatives. And actually, I
Exactly.
would like to ask the chair to nudge the Lancaster Finance and Selectmen to cause a representative to be appointed this year, as well as the Stowe and Bolton same committees, so that they know they're on the hook to reappoint
Okay,
their representatives.
let's get that done early. See
I
if we
mean, to
can.
do that now,
Right.
then all the selectmen are reappointing their annual people right now, so maybe before June is over, we may know who's on board for the coming year.
Wouldn't that be nice? I wonder if we could do something. No, we can't. I was going to say at Tri-Town, but it's not. It's not. We can't.
You can announce it, but perhaps best direct communication, I think.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take that one. All right. Correspondence. I got three people reached out on kindergarten class sizes in Bolton, but I think that's in a good place, and I feel like that's being
monitored regularly.
I think it's being more than the monitored, so I think we're good with that. Does anybody else have any correspondence they want to share with us? No? Okay. Consent agenda, assuming that there are no issues, the meeting minutes of May 10th and the warrants for May 26th are good to go. And then items for next agenda, the superintendent's evaluation. So for those who were involved with the superintendent's evaluation and new folks you weren't, that's with personnel right now, and personnel will be discussing an increase and bringing that recommendation to the school committee.
Next week.
All right, and then on the 21st is goal setting. Ooh, and Alita, I do have it. And there's a Florence Sawyer School Spanish presentation next meeting. We're moving that superintendent's evaluation up, and I'm likely going to add another quick update from the chair, because I've got all these little things, and if it's not on the agenda, I can't really speak to it. So other than that, I think we are in a good place. All right, so if there is nothing else, I would love if one of you could make a motion to move us into executive session.
I move that we go into executive session to review and discuss draft executive session minutes, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body and the chair so declares. Discussion and possible action regarding release of minutes from an executive session held on January 18, 2017. The meeting will adjourn in executive session.
Thank you. And a second, please. Susan, oh, close. Okay, roll call. Susan?
Yes.
Elise?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Lorraine, yes?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Steve? And Neil?
Yes.
All right, thank you.